overstated, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Okay. Why don't you state it then? How much your son
Recognized him. Yeah.
enjoys him?
No, I said that he wanted to have a picture with Charlie because he was very familiar with him, and so many young boys are. Okay. And it was a recognition of the why. Why was Charlie my first guest? Because I recognized his influence, not just in the last election, and how many young men and boys heard the bell and answered the bell in terms of organizing on campuses and supporting the dialogue and the organizational principles that Charlie Kirk was supporting and advancing. And I thought it was important to illuminate that and highlight that. But it was absolutely true that my son, like many kids his age, were not only familiar with Charlie Kirk, they're familiar with Andrew Tate, familiar with people like Jordan Peterson, very familiar with what's happening online and podcasts and what some have referred to, in some cases pejoratively, others in terms of illuminating this manosphere. And I think it's important to understand that. Parents need to understand that. But obviously Charlie Kirk was a master at not only the work he did online, but offline, and his capacity to organize and engage.
If I may, the question was just going to be like if you could talk about how you're processing Charlie Kirk's death with your son, whether it's been...
Well, he called me, and I don't know whose phone he was using, but he called me from school. He heard about it. So, and he said, everybody, Dad's talking about it. And he wanted to know, is he alive? Is he alive? And so it was very impactful. I asked all these young men just a moment ago upstairs, said, how many of you have heard of Charlie Kirk? Every single one of them. How were you processing? I asked them. And they said, it's been difficult, but it was universal condemnation of this horrific and unacceptable act, period, full stop. And it was interesting. I made that point to my son. I said, we just put out a statement to that effect, condemning this very, very clearly and very immediately. We didn't wait around tonally to figure that out. There's right and wrong. And that was the principle that I reinforced with him. But it's just a reminder of how many young people were impacted by this death in a pretty profound way and continue to be impacted by the images they saw. And, you can never unsee what you saw and how that will impact these kids in this generation in a pretty profound way.